Welcome to Glitch Cube. We're a gaming podcast, and each week we take a deeper look into the art of video games. I'm Christian.
I'm Chris.
And welcome back to another fun and exciting episode. We are going to be continuing on with our little series on game mechanics, branching out into a different area of that field, expanding on a different concept this week. We had a really fun time exploring the ideas of death in games on the previous week. And if you haven't had a chance to check that out, please do so, because it was really fun to make. And there's a lot of really interesting concepts that came out of it, or just us taking a deeper dive into where gaming has gone so far with that idea. But before we hop into today's episode, we always like to start it out by spreading some love and joy out there in the world. So is there anything this week that you would like to plug and, celebrate?
I kind of got into my first Monster Hunter game.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, that's something. Like, I've tried World before, but, I just couldn't get into it. But I downloaded the Monster Hunter Stories 2 demo that came out.
Stories is great.
And I really like it. It's different. I'm not blown away by it, but I really like it a lot. Maybe because it's different than other RPGs I'm playing right now. But I like the rock, paper, scissors battle system, and I don't know, it's cute. It's different. I like it. It kind of makes me want to explore more of the Monster Hunter universe, I guess you could call it.
It's Monster Hunter the anime, and I think they did a really good job with this one as well. World was a great way of introducing the rest of the world to Monster Hunter, because it's been a very strong title for years, but it's big in the Asian market as compared to Western market. But it's one of those that kind of has a difficulty gate to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like World did a great job with that. And then Stories now, I think, is going to be a great way of getting a younger audience into the main franchise. It's really smart, because it is a very simplistic game comparatively to the other Monster Hunter games, with its rock, paper, scissors mechanics. It's turn-based combat. It's a lot more story-based than the other titles are.
Yeah,
but it's getting you familiar with the monsters that you would be hunting when you finally decide to pick up one of the other titles, right? And you'll already have some of the common knowledge of oh, this monster, kind of does more of these kind of attacks or whatever it may be. So it's really, I think it's a really genius way of making that market even more accessible to a wider audience. So it's really clever. And the first Monster Hunter Stories was actually really fun. I really enjoyed that one. So I'm excited about this other one. It's very simple, but they're great.
Yeah, it's simple, but I don't know, it's fun. I like it.
Yeah.
What about
this
you?
week? Oh man, anime. So okay, I hurt myself at work. I'm okay, but I've been kind of forced to stay off my feet for a little while, and I've been keeping up with editing, and I kind of been ahead of the game as far as that goes, which is nice. I feel great being able to work on my own projects again. But I've also gotten lost in the rabbit hole of anime, and I picked up Gurren Lagann because I haven't watched it. It was one of those that when I originally saw it, I kind of stayed away from it because of what appeared to be just too much fan service in my mind. But after watching it, I fell in love. That anime is fantastic. The mech fights are beautifully done, and the character arcs are just so amazing to me. There's so much depth to this show that's only 27 episodes long, and they were able to comprise so much into it, years and years of fighting, and so much just heart and spirit. That's the whole thing of this, is just internal spirit, right? When I was watching it, I just kept wanting to get up and fight, or get up and work out or do something, because everything they say is so over the top, but it's inspiring in its own right. And such a great show. if you guys haven't watched it or just kind of stayed away because same reasons I did, maybe you're not a big fan of the fan service stuff, but look past it and just enjoy it. Like, this is a visual like wonderland as for an anime. It's just so good. And now I really want to watch the 2 movies that it has attached to it, because I guess it's the same storyline as the show, but it expands on them just a little bit more, and it kind of
Mm.
changes up some of the fights and adds a little bit to them to make them more epic. So, yeah, I want to see the changes that they did. That's for sure.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I remember watching that one not too long ago, and I always usually watch my anime like on my other screen while I'm doing something.
Hmm.
And I remember actually like really getting into it where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus watching this because like you said, it really surprised me. You know, it was different. It's not all
Yeah,
fan service.
yeah, definitely not all. It's only a little bit too, which is crazy. All the trailers and stuff fill it with it, but it's really not that bad. All right. So, welcome to episode 2 of our series for game mechanics, taking a deeper dive and a deeper look into them. Today, or this week at least, we will be going over one of the most common mechanics used in gaming, or at least I feel like it is. It is growth leveling. We're looking at the level up progression systems.
Numbers.
It's the
Yay.
numbers game, baby. Some people like to min max. Some people like to just run through with it, you know. And most of these games, if a game is balanced well enough, you can just let that go in the background. You don't even have to think about it, and you'll level up as you need to enjoy and beat the game. But for those out there that like the grind, that like to go into it and really pick apart those numbers, you're able to do that as well and get an enjoyable experience. So leveling is very interesting, but before we go into it, and there's different forms of it, different ways that you can get around it. I wanted to ask you: are you more of a grind guy, or are you got one of those go with the flow kind of person?
I feel like even with how games have gotten simpler in a sense, I
Mhm.
still grind. I noticed when I was playing through Grandia, like at first I wasn't focusing on it. I was just kind of going with the flow. And then I found a spot where I'm like, oh, I could get a lot of experience this way. And I
Mm.
just started grinding and grinding, and I was like 8 levels over like what most the guides were saying, like, hey, you need to be this level. And I'm like, oh, well, I never have to read a guide because now I'm.
Yeah, you're way too powered.
Yeah. So, I
Yeah,
mean, I think it's just because I've played so many of the older RPGs, it's just like ingrained in me to always kind of level up an extra 2 and make sure like it feels comfortable.
right.
What about you?
I'm definitely a grind guy for sure. There's so many times where I get lost in it, honestly. I mean, so for instance, with the Final Fantasy 15, whenever I found out that you didn't have to follow the main story and it wasn't linear anymore, I
Mm.
just went out into a random field and kept finding the next area that had the most experience that I could potentially get out of it. And then, using that system that they put into it, which we can get into a little bit later, of how to kind of game the system at least to get better experience or more experience.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up maxing out my characters in I think chapter 3,
Oh my God.
and there's 12 chapters to this game. So after that, at that point, I was like, well, I guess I might as well just kind of see how it is. And I still had a really enjoyable time playing through the storyline itself, but it was, I mean, of course it was easier because my characters were so beefed up, but it was still fun for me because that's my kind of game, right? That's my style of playing.
Yeah.
Was I felt like I still got what I wanted to out of it because and I still got the struggle because I had to go through, but my struggle was different, right? It wasn't struggling with the bosses and figuring that out. The struggle was me getting to a level in which I was like comfortable with just continuing on and then getting the story, right? And just absorbing the story and appreciating it for what it was. So I think I took away part of the element of the challenge to just enjoy the story that they were laying out in front of me.
I like doing that. for the most part, because it's nice, like being able to just not have to worry about getting slaughtered.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does take away the challenge, but I mean, they throw other challenges in there that regardless of levels, sometimes it could still trick you.
Yeah.
Like if it's a boss with just status ailments and stuff like that, like it's like they find ways to still kind of give you a little challenge.
Yeah, and those fights weren't easy still, regardless of the fact. But like you said, because they added in other bits and pieces that kind of throw off your game, right? Like you come in with a plan of like, okay, well, I think that's also like the double-edged sword
Sword.
sword of coming in with such a high power level is that you feel like you can just kind of hack and slash your way through it. But then when they start throwing in things like, like poison or slow spells and all that, like it definitely makes it a little bit more difficult and throws you off your game. And then you have to then come up with a new strategy on the spot, which is great. Just a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to leveling up, right, I feel like, and for what a lot of people, a lot of research that I've done on this topic, it feels like there's two different types of leveling when it comes to gaming, right? There's the intrinsic or internal leveling systems, or the extrinsic and external leveling systems. Now, just saying that, I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, what? Right? So breaking that down a little bit further, the internal leveling system would be games like chess, Smash Brothers, fighting games. Those are the games in which the player is going to be leveling up their own skills. So you yourself become just a better player at these games. So like with battle royales and things like that, you become better at shooting, you become more fluid with it, you learn the guns. Nothing's really leveling up, your stats aren't changing, but you're just becoming a better player through experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side, we have the extrinsic or external style of leveling, which is kind of your more classic ones. It would be more like with your JRPGs and things like that, in which your player actually levels up their the stats of the characters that they are playing, right? So
Yeah.
we've all seen this, level up and you get like +7 to attack, +1 to intelligence, right? And a lot of those stats can get kind of like bogged down, and most of the time you might not even pay attention to them. Like, for instance, a game that's really perfect for external, and we've mentioned the grind, would be Pokemon, right? Pokemon's a great game when it comes to leveling up, and including the grind system of leveling where you just go through, walk back and forth in a field constantly to try and level up your Pokemon as high as you can. And when you do, you get a lot of stat boosts and things like that I know as a kid, I didn't really pay attention to those. Now, with the newer games, you can have, EVs and IVs and kind of really tweak the Pokemon stats to what you want and kind of make them to the fighter that you want them to be, a little bit more specific in defense or attack based on their specialty moves and stuff like that, right? But back in the day, I know that those stats didn't really mean anything to me. The one thing I knew was, can I one-shot a character, and how high does that level number say, right? Like, what was your experience for that, like from the past to now, those kind of things?
I mean, yeah, I think for me, I always loved seeing that. Like, it feels rewarding. I mean, looking at it, it's kind of like a number system to me. And seeing the stats go up every time you level is just kind of cool. And I think, going beyond like Pokemon, kind of how people have evolved with that, it's interesting when, say, like when I was playing through Grandia, and different weapons give you different stat boosts every time you level up your skill in it, right? So swords give you like strength and HP every time you level up that skill, and then I like axes give strength and defense, or it's like that, where you get like 2 stat bonuses with each level of those on top of, just when you level up.
Right.
And I still love it to this day. I mean, it's a cool feature, and it feels weird when games don't really either show you or they make it less pronounced.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've loved that ever since. I remember Pokemon, I think, was kind of like the first game where I really noticed it.
Right. Yeah, it is a much more like rewarding way of giving the player something to go off of.
Hmm.
That's for sure. It's just another value, another increase, like another reward system uh to just kind of boost the overall experience, to make it more enjoyable for the players as they continue on their journey. Even if it is kind of like mundane or like simple, like it could just be even like a +1, which might mean like, oh, now instead of your attacks doing, 10 damage, now they have a chance of doing 11 damage. But seeing that number increase as you're playing on is definitely something to kind of keep you going in the long run, right?
Hmm.
Even if it does almost nothing for your playstyle or for your overall, like the difficulty of it, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see that. And when I was looking at this and kind of like looking at this topic more and thinking about it, external leveling is much more prominent in gaming. And I think it's because we need that kind of reward system in place, right? Like a lot of games, they still have a point system there, but it doesn't really like do much, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Like Devil May Cry, right? Like you have it where at the end of each stage, you get the stage clear, you get your point bonuses, all that fun stuff. But it doesn't really like, there's no real way of kind of breaking it down or really like fully understanding what's going on there, right? With these point systems, at least with the stat increases, you get the fact that like you feel like you're getting stronger as you go on your journey because you're seeing these numbers increase over time, right?
It makes the grind
And
worth it.
yeah, yeah, because you're getting little tiny rewards as you progress on to your bigger rewards of like defeating the boss or completing a chapter or whatever it may be, right?
Hmm.
And I think one game that does that very well is Final Fantasy IX. Like you mentioned in Grandia as well, how each weapon gives you a different bonus increase to your stats whenever you level up, right?
Yeah.
Depending on swords or axes or whatever it may be. But then in Final Fantasy IX, they have multiple systems of leveling up going on at the same exact time, right? Like your stats will increase as you level up. But then also, what's going on in the background is that the equipment that you're wearing has skills that then level up, and once they're leveled, then you can actually learn them forever and change out your equipment, and then kind of balance your player based on the skills that you want them to have to be running in the background. Whether it's something like Bird Killer, where now your player does bonus damage to flying enemies, you don't need that equipment attached anymore with that particular skill. You can change that to something more stronger for your player, but you can then have that skill active at all times if it's something that you actually want, right? And it's very clever, and it's a way of taking that system, that like kind of point allocation there, or like the I guess it wouldn't be point allocation because you're not the one actually allocating the points anywhere. It's just the stat increase, I guess, way of doing it. And increasing it to increase the amount of rewards that you're getting while you're playing. And I think that's why I really feel like Final Fantasy IX is one of my favorite Final Fantasies to ever play. And it's because of the amount of rewards that you're getting while you're playing. It's not just once, when you level up or you get like a new ability or whatever it may be, but almost like every other battle, something is leveling up, right? Whether
Yeah.
it be a skill, your player character, or whatever it may be, the loot that you're getting, right? Like you're constantly being rewarded for battling and going through this grind, because in those kind of games, like the speed of game slows down so much whenever you have battle systems like that, in which you have to then go to a completely different screen. You go through the battle, you get your rewards, all that, and then you come back into the world, and then you're running around again, right? Like the pacing is so weird there. when you really like break it down, like it's such a like, okay, we're going, and then boom, like here's a battle. Okay, battle's done. Now, okay, now we go back to exploration phase, right? Like there really isn't like a steady pace to that, especially when it comes to having like throwing in random battles and all that as well. So being constantly rewarded for these little interruptions while you're exploring definitely make the pacing a lot easier or something more manageable to deal with, and actually makes it a much more enjoyable experience in the long run, in my opinion.
I agree. I actually feel kind of the same way about Final Fantasy IX, and I really loved how it had that system where you use a weapon or armor and you gain those skills, and it made me really want to try out different things. Because
Hmm.
in most RPGs, I just go for the strongest weapon until the next one pops up. But in there,
Hmm.
it's like you kind of have to play around with different ones just to get different skills. And
Right.
every time I got one, well, here I go grinding again to try and actually keep the skill. Like it actually made me enjoy the
Hmm.
grind because you know you're going to get rewarded on top of just your average level, which was cool. And
Yeah. And it made it so that you weren't just going to the random armor shop or weapon shop and just picking out the strongest thing just because, oh, this is the best equipment there, right?
mhm,
Every equipment had its own little extra to give you. So you were okay with equipping the lower status equipment, or like the weaker ones, in order to get those skill boosts later, right? And it's very clever, and it allows the player to really customize their players and their own progression as they go on. And I think it's kind of like that style of play is really interesting to see, especially in a JRPG where they're a lot more linear in the way that they're playing, right?
yeah.
And I really enjoy the idea of like customizing your progression and like making it more along the way that you play. And I think that's why I think another game that does that really well would be Dicey Dungeon,
Hmm.
or anything like Slay the Spire or anything like that, right? Like those roguelike card games where you progress by building your deck or building up the abilities that you have to create more of like a synergistic style to how you're playing through that run, right?
Yeah.
And it's I find that a lot more interesting in terms of gameplay, and it works better in, I would say, games like roguelites, or like particularly Dicey Dungeon, because I brought it up. But you're able to, like, okay, I'm gonna play the thief this round. I want to do a poison build. Let me try and grab as many abilities that have to deal with poison or stacking that as much as possible. And as you're progressing, you're constantly making your abilities more fine tuned to that style, to that general way of like you want to play that run. And you feel like you're leveling up your own abilities in that way as well, customizing your own playthrough as you're going along, which is really cool to see. And it's interesting that to have a JRPG kind of try that, and to give the player a little bit more freedom when it comes to actually customizing their characters in that way, because we don't really see that very often, unfortunately.
You really don't. Like I feel like you only really see it in those kind of like deck building games, and barely even any roguelikes really have it. I
Hmm.
think it's a really interesting system that I think if incorporated in your traditional, external leveling system, I think it'd be really cool because you're right. It really does kind of play on both internal and external.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely does, because you're, depending on how you want to play that run, which would be the internal, right?
Mm-hmm.
It You then gather your abilities, your cards, whatever it may be, which would be your external, in order to customize your run or playthrough at that time, which is really, really interesting. And I feel like it could be used more. Like Final Fantasy X, I feel like kind of did that as well with the sphere grid, and the fact that
Mm.
they were all kind of intertwined, right?
Yeah.
And you're able, like, you can get every character to learn like holy and flare and these really big magic skills, right? But you need the amount of skill, or you need to be able to move around the sphere, right? And kind of customize it how you want. But I know that whenever I played through, I ended up getting like almost every ability on every character because,
Damn.
right, the grind, because you can do that eventually.
Yeah.
But I think in your first playthroughs of games like that, once you start realizing like, oh, there's a lot more fluidity to the way that this level up system is working, and they use the point allocation system quite brilliantly when it came to that, right? And in combination with the skill trees and things like that. So as you're moving along this path, like for those who aren't super familiar with skill trees and point allocations, I don't really know where you've been if you're listening to a gaming podcast, but uh, but skill trees are a way in which, or they're a bunch of abilities kind of mapped out on like a roadmap, right? And you need to unlock one ability in order to progress on to the next one. And in order to do that, you need certain types of, or you need some skill points or whatever it may be called at that time. Usually you get one skill point per level that you level up, or some games do multiple depending on the game style and how vast their skill trees are, right?
Mm-hmm.
One very simple version of the skill tree that I think is really good to look at and really interesting to look at would be the Borderlands 2 skill tree. And I got really familiar with that one because I played a lot of that game. But you're able, because I love it. I mean, that game's great in general, right? I mean, who
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
love a shooter? And it's goofy. It's like a comic book. It's fantastic. But then when you really look under the hood of this game, there's so much more to it, right? Like this is an actual RPG. You have such vast, like you have 3 different kind of classes for each character that you can dive into, and you can allocate your skill points wherever you want. Now, you do need to follow the skill tree path in order to unlock the new nodes after that. And then you start kind of creating interesting builds where you're mixing classes and dumping stats into different abilities to then cater to your own playstyle, which would then again be more customizable progression, which is a great, like, skill trees are a great way of creating the ability to customize a player's playthrough of a game, right? Because they are able to then say, well, I like this skill better than this one, so let me kind of dump more stats into that one instead of, going down this path, right? But there are so many games that do have skill trees that kind of give the illusion of being able to fully customize your character, because eventually you're just going to get enough stat points to just fully dump into everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what happened with me, at least with Final Fantasy X, was at first, while I was playing the game, it felt like I was able to customize to the way that I wanted to fight and the way I wanted to do things. But then after a while, it was just like, well, it's really just linear, right? Like you're just going to continue moving along this path. Eventually, you're going to get this. It doesn't really matter, right? You're going to get those basic stat bonuses. So it's not like you're really making a difference. It's just another way of unlocking those abilities where you kind of feel like you're doing it because you physically have to go into the sphere grid and move those stat points around instead of them just saying like, oh, unlocked new ability at this level, right? So it's kind of giving you the illusion of customization whenever it's not really there.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the second time I played through Final Fantasy X, and I was thinking, like, what if I made, like, the characters, like, a totally different kind of class, right? So you make, like, Lulu focus on, like, skills that are not just black mage and stuff, and I thought, like, it was cool, but at the same time, it's, like, in the end, they're still kind of stuck to, like, their original class, like,
Right.
it's supposed to be like that. I mean, for me, like skill trees, my first really big experience was it with WoW. You had your spec trees, and I mean, I thought it was really cool. I love skill trees in games, and Borderlands was another. Like I remember thinking it was really cool how you can just switch it on the fly. Like I think the penalty wasn't that much to reset. Like it was in the beginning like a low amount of money, so it was kind of cool to play around with different skill trees, and sometimes almost felt like a different game depending on like which character you chose. Sometimes their skills are pretty different, but I feel like in time skill trees have kind of, I mean, I think they're coming back, but there was a point where you didn't really have that kind of customization. Like, I remember when WoW got rid of it, and it was basically like, oh, you can pick between these two skills, like when you reach like every 5 levels or something like that.
Mhm.
And, a lot of newer RPGs, it was basically just streamlined. Like, you couldn't customize your skill tree. And I personally love it. I love having those options of just picking what I want. I mean, I hate it when some games don't give you the full amount of points, so you can't unlock everything.
Right.
But I think it's a really awesome system that I really wish more games had, other than
Right.
just like MMOs.
Hey everybody, just jumping in real quick. Just want to say first of all, thank you for continuing listening, and obviously you're enjoying it because you've reached the middle of our episode. But before we continue on, we just wanted to remind you all that if you are truly enjoying what you're hearing and you want to learn some more about us, you can find us on social medias, and we have links in our description. And you can find me and all the drawings that I'm doing on Instagram at Kieran, and that's Keuran. What about you, Chris?
You can find me at Sloppy Cube on Instagram. That's Sloppy and Cube at the end of it. I do all retro games or just games in general, so if that's your thing, check me out. You can also message me about ideas and anything, because I love talking.
Yep, we both really enjoy talking, obviously, because we are recording a podcast. So if you want to join in the conversation, please reach out to us on the Discord, and let's get right back into this episode.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so with skill trees, we've been talking about when you level up, you gain points to then dump into your stats, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are some games that kind of change that as well. For instance, when you look at Devil May Cry, right? That actually is a skill tree system. It's just kind of laid out differently when you really think about it. And in order to get new abilities as you progress, you're using what you also use for currency to buy items. So when you pick up souls, or the red orbs, sorry, I was thinking about demon souls for a second. But when you pick up the red orbs as you're playing along, that's your main currency for everything. That's your currency for gaining items. That's your currency for leveling up your character. And the way that they do it is they kind of made the skill tree into like a shop in which you go through and you buy these abilities, right? So let's say you buy Stinger, which is an ability. It's just a forward thrust move, right? But what you can do later is you can buy an upgraded version of Stinger, right? So that would be kind of like you're dumping a secondary stat point into that ability to make it a little bit stronger. But really, it's the same idea as if it was laid out in like a branching, skill tree system as well. Just with all the stats available to you at one point in time, they would just have different point system or point values allocated to them. So of course, like the higher value combos would then have a higher point system or like cost to them. But it's all kind of the same, right? It still is a skill tree in its own sense, but it's using a different way of leveling up to its advantage, right? Because there's no like experience points that you gain in Devil May Cry. You don't level up, so how else would you then become better at it, right? And one interesting thing that it does as well is that it actually gives the player time to understand that combo and then incorporate it into the way that they fight, right? So when you unlock a new ability in Devil May Cry, I think the natural instinct for everybody would be then to instantly start using it while you're fighting. Because, you just bought the thing, right? So you're going to play with it.
You gotta.
Exactly. So whenever you're playing around with this new system, you then now incorporate it into your combos, which means that you are, leveling up your internal systems, right? Which means that you yourself, the player, is becoming better at the game because you're becoming more fluid with this new more complex combo system. And then when you have enough currency, then you can now unlock a new like combo chain to add to what you were then doing before. So the way that they lay it out, it allows you to actually become better at the game as a player, even though there isn't really a lot of external leveling going on. The only external would be you buying the new uh, skills or abilities to then chain into your combo, which make you better as a player because now you're learning these little nuances, these little timing things to make sure that you're able to pull off these combos without a hitch, right? So it's very interesting to see how they incorporated that system into it, where it's not just leveling up a character anymore. It's now using your currency and purchasing these new abilities to then, get more fun things to play with, I guess, right? Because you don't really need to buy any of that crap.
Yeah.
You can just go through and play the game as much as you want. But if you want to be more stylish with the way that you play, then of course you're going to buy new things to kind of just enhance all those abilities and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, look at Dark Souls too. I mean, you use the souls as currency, and it's like there you do have to spend the souls. It's not like Devil May Cry where you could play the whole game basic without your skills. You just won't be as cool. But with Dark Souls, it's like you actually kind of have to like really manage your souls and all of that, and everything gets more expensive with every kind of like stat increase. I think it's a really interesting way of like management with that.
Yeah.
Thinking of a different way of leveling, I was gonna ask, what are your thoughts on games like, say, Final Fantasy II, where in order to level up your attributes, like, say, you have to take damage in order to level up your HP? Like, do you like those kind of systems? Like, say, if you hit somebody with a melee attack, your strength goes up, or magic is magic up, stuff like that.
I think the first game that I ran into that was Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics. And, like, yes, you can game the system and just kind of sit in the back and have one player attacking one other character, your own character, and then have your healer heal them, right? So you're, boosting your magic abilities, and you're boosting the strength of another character, and you're boosting the defense of the third one that's getting constantly hit. Yeah. And that's one way to kind of game the system. But I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest. I feel like I don't really know what style it's trying to push forward or what type of gameplay it's trying to push forward. And I find it really difficult to then like actually progress properly. And it feels like if like, let's say one of your character doesn't have like great movement, right? Like specifically in a tactics game, right? And they kind of end up in the back, which I feel like happens a lot with some of the characters. Like you have your main frontline guys that run out there. They're obviously going to become stronger. Your support characters are going to become stronger because they're supporting the frontline guys. But then there's the ones in the middle that kind of like every once in a while will get the chance to level up and, fight and get into the fray. But I'm not a big fan of that system, honestly. I feel like having it more in line with the later Final Fantasies, in which after each battle you gain experience points off the battle, like that makes more sense to me, because it creates more of like a balanced way of boosting all your characters, rather than it just being like, oh, this one character is now way over leveled because you're able to use them more than the other ones. If that makes sense.
Right. I mean, I appreciate the system because it feels realistic in a sense, because, you take damage. Of course, you're going to be like stronger eventually from it. But like you said, it is easy to cheese it. But I think, because we haven't really seen it done like in a modern game, I'm like trying to think if it would even really work out. But I mean, it's definitely,
I think there's a reason why we haven't.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a system I kind of still want to explore more, because I didn't really get far in that game because I'm so used to leveling up and you get all your basic stats, and like it's easier to gauge like how well you're going to do in a new area. It's like in those games, what if you play it but you don't really grind per se? And you go into a new area and you just get wrecked. It's like, okay, how much do I really have to get hit to get enough HP and all of that kind of stuff? It makes it it throws an added difficulty in there, which I think when I played it originally, that's what turned me off of it.
I think you said it best whenever you said it was more realistic that way, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the big problems with realistic systems is that they are great, right? Like Darkest Dungeon, with the way it handles like the psychotic breakdowns and alcoholism and all that stuff, like it can be done really well. But I feel like most players are playing for not realism, right?
Yeah.
Like they want that escapism. They want to just kind of progress along their own story. So adding in this extra bit of like, it totally makes sense, right? Like if you have someone out in the front line constantly attacking and swinging their sword, they're eventually going to become stronger and better at swinging their sword. That's just actual progression. That's just real life. But when it comes to gaming, like having that extra bit of realism makes it really difficult to kind of enjoy the game long term, in my opinion. I would like to kind of revisit some of those games that have that system and kind of see what they're doing, especially from like a designer perspective, and see like how that could be taken more into like modern day times and make it more feasible and enjoyable for players. But it is definitely a difficult way of handling things. So we've been talking a lot about like gaming systems and things like that, and I feel like I would be remorse if I didn't bring up some tabletop style leveling up as well, because I mean really all of this comes from tabletop, and I think one of the biggest areas of that is Dungeons and Dragons, right? They do have originally, like, they only had the experience point style of leveling in their game, where for every enemy that you beat, then you gain a certain amount of experience. And for some games, that's really enjoyable, especially if you're trying to create kind of like a dungeon crawling experience for your players. But nowadays, especially with the boom of how many actual play Dungeons and Dragons podcasts there are out there, people want more of a story driven game. So one way that they kind of handled the progression style of it is they've created milestone progression systems. And what this is basically it's up to the DM's discretion. And really, it could be after every session. It could be after a particular event. It could just be really anywhere which the DM feels like you have learned a life lesson for your player character. Then you level up, right? And you can have it where it's really up to however you guys want to play at the table, but you can have it where players level up individually. You can have it where they all level up together. It just kind of depends on what kind of story you're trying to weave and the pacing of it. So do you want one character to be way overpowered because they just happen to love role play and get into it more, or which works, but at the same time, you might be punishing those who aren't really big into character voices or are peeing as hard as the other player, right? So it's a tough one to balance for sure when it comes to milestone progression. And I feel like maybe like after each session, giving them something is a good idea. It especially works whenever you're trying to tell a story in a podcast, because you can level up your players quickly and give them new abilities and then throw bigger threats at them to keep this pacing of the story more interesting. But it's one that's, I feel like it works really well on tabletop. I can't think of an example, or a really good example at least, of milestone progressions in gaming. I'm not sure. Do you have any, or do you know of any?
I know I've played a few games that had it where, say, you reach a certain point and they like either give you like a skill that's like special at that point in the story, or certain events will give you something different. But I can't really think of any, because I mean, I don't really think it's given that often in like gaming. It's a really cool concept, and I actually really wish that we would see it more. Like, it would really, I think, advance some stories kind of well if you just kind of gave them something special for advancing to that point.
Yeah. I think it's different than like in games. I guess in some games, like you might get like a new weapon after a certain chapter, right? Or like defeating a boss. Now you have like the Demon Slayer sword or whatever it may be, right? Like like you can kind of progress that way as well. Which I guess, in my opinion, that might work better for gaming or like in a video game setting.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to find an actual video game that's purely based on milestone progression. But I guess it would have to be something a little bit more story heavy, as opposed to kind of like ones that allow you to kind of go out and kind of grind away if you want to, right? Like it might feel a little bit like kind of like a railroady game where you're just kind of like on one track and you just go forward and see what happens.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's an interesting system that I think can definitely be explored a little bit more. There's one game out there, and it's a game that I feel like a lot of people are talking about right now because it's so good, but it's a franchise that's been around for a while, and I absolutely love it. But Ratchet and Clank, man, that game takes every single like level progression system and throws it all into one beautiful game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that this was your first time playing through a Ratchet and Clank game, but how did you feel about while you're playing it? Maybe with what we do here at the podcast and kind of overanalyzing games, you had like a different way of looking at it, or like, because I know whenever I played those games, it's so much fun to see like as you're playing, it's like, oh, cool, I leveled up. And I'm getting better at more comfortable playing this game, and then at the same time each one of my weapons are leveling up, like everything has its own little abilities, everything's getting stronger on its own, but at the same time we're all becoming stronger at the same time. Like it's just a pure like reward fest. So what was your opinion on it?
So for me, when I played those kind of games in the past, like, you know, other like 3D adventure games, I never really expected like levels. It's more so just like, you know, collect 100 fruit and then you gain a new life, and that's really it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I realized like, oh, I'm leveling up my weapons the more I use them, and then it unlocks more skills to make those weapons stronger, it actually made me really like the game more. I feel like if the game didn't have that leveling aspect to it, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much. Like, it was a fun game.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool, but being able to like kind of make my weapons really strong and just goof around on it, it was fun. I mean, your main level, like, yeah, you just gain an extra 10 health, which is cool and all, but I was really surprised by the whole skill leveling, like with weapons. And I think it'd be really fun to look back at some of those other like 3D action games or platformers and see that system, because if more games, like, I'm a sucker for leveling things up, and if a game is not like a typical JRPG where it's like something like this but incorporates that system, I love it. Like, I'm all over it. You know, shooters that have a leveling system like this, and it's cool seeing genres have that added system in it, and with a game like this, it just worked really well.
I agree. And another beautiful thing that it did, in my opinion, was that it forces you to explore the maps that they've created. Because they put a lot of work into these levels. And like the new Ratchet and Clank game looks so beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Every level is just so well designed. Everything just intertwines so well. And in order to actually go through the skill trees of the weapons, you need to pick up what's it called? It's
bolts.
Raytheum?
Oh, yeah, the Raritanium.
And the Raritanium, you actually find it on the map. So there's little like clumps of it. So it's kind of cool how it set that up, where instead of as you level up, you just get more Raritanium, you actually have to go out and find it. So it forces you to then explore these beautiful maps that they've created and just kind of get an appreciation for how well planned and thought out these worlds actually are. In order to then level up your weapons and you become stronger as you're playing through. So it's really clever. They really, I don't know, the way they design these games is just so smart. So good.
Yeah, I thought it was fun because it's like leveling up your weapons to unlock the skills and then using those to actually buy it. It really added to it. And I loved exploring those stages. Like, it was really cool. It was a nice
Mhm.
touch. It's a good way of getting people to actually like walk around your world other than just going on that straight path to the story.
Yeah, exactly.
One last thought for you.
Yeah.
Do you hate it as much as I do when, say, like, I guess the old Pokemon games had this, but a lot of other older RPGs have it where if the characters are not in your like active party, they don't get the experience.
Yeah, I think, okay, when I was younger, it kind of annoyed me, but I just said, "Oh, well, I guess I have to play more,"
Mm-hmm.
right? Now it really bugs me because I just don't have time to do that crap anymore. Like I remember, I can't remember which, I guess it was Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, where it really started bugging me. It was probably like the fucking 30th time that I played through this game. But I wanted to just play through it, and I think it was right before the remake came out because I wanted to just, get back into that nostalgia mindset.
Yeah.
So I was playing through, and then I remember like, oh fuck, like I remember what I did when I was younger was that like I just picked 3 and I just stuck with them,
Yep.
right? And I feel like those kind of games, when they set up level systems like that, you just pick the same one, your main party, and you just stick with it. And then like knowing, spoilers that, Aerith dies and all that, I'd never even had her in my party. I didn't even bother. I was like, well, what's the point whenever she's just gonna go away? So I got the same 3 characters. It was just Cloud, Tifa, and Red 13. That was my party. And that was it. I just ran with those characters the entire way through. Never stopped playing with those characters. I think I switched out Tifa for Yuffie at one point in my last playthrough, and then just stuck with it because I wanted Yuffie's extra speed boost so that I would always go first, right? Like,
Interesting.
so
You picked Red.
I love Red. No matter what, I always
I
pick
don't
Red.
think I ever really used Red.
I don't know why, but I've always loved Red, and he's always been in my party, even whenever I first played that game. Like, there's just something that drew me to that character, and maybe it was the fact that they went into so much more detail about his backstory than I felt like some of the other characters. Like, you even have that whole scene in Cosmo Canyon meeting his grandfather. Like, it was just a really big ordeal, and I just got more attached to Red 13.
Interesting.
For sure. So, I don't know. But when it comes back to that system, that idea of if they're not in your immediate party, they don't get any experience, I personally hate it. I really do. It really bugs me for time management, at least, and really enjoying the game. And then whenever those RPGs come in where it's like, okay, great, now we're splitting the party. Well, it's like, oh
God.
shit, like I haven't played with these characters. They're so underleveled. Now, like, half of this game is now going to be super fucking hard for no reason, whenever it could have just been a little bit easier that way. Like, I think Final Fantasy 13 did it where even your characters get the skill points too, right? Like, I think you can boost, I forgot which one I was playing. Maybe it wasn't 13, but I played a game in which like your characters might not like level up, but everybody got skill points. So you can enhance their skill trees so they get better abilities, which makes the grind a little easier.
That's cool.
While you're playing it, which was a fun way of handling that system. It still didn't work perfectly because, I mean, they're not like super leveled, but yeah. And then, I mean, when it comes to Pokemon, the EXP alls, it's great, but then they had it where like it was kind of diminished, right? As far as who got experience. And I mean, sure, that works, but then you start thinking about like, what order do I want them to be in? And then of course you have your number 1 who gets the most experience, and you end up sticking with him all the way through. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard. That's a hard system to make work.
Yeah, when you're talking about like with the splits, I'm just thinking about Final Fantasy VI, and there's like certain parts where you have to split your party in 3.
Oh,
and it's like, okay, like I focused on like 4 main characters, right? And now I'm being thrown in there to use characters like I've almost never used. So I had to pair one of my strong ones, and then the rest are weak. And I mean, the one thing I do like, it's kind of cool because then they all level up really fast and you see a lot more numbers, and I love that. But yeah, it's scary. I remember there was a few times in 6 where it's like literally the only person surviving the battle. Where's that one strong person? And I was like,
Yeah,
God damn it.
constantly.
But yeah, it's a feature that I'm growing to not hate as much, but it's still annoying.
I appreciate it for the realism, but it makes it really hard when you're trying to manage your time.
Yeah.
And you only have like, oh, I got a couple hours to kill. Let me pop in this game real quick, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, shit.
Or they force
There
that
goes my
one
couple
character to fight, and it's like, okay,
Oh,
I haven't used this character at all. Like, screw you.
Yeah, you just let them KO on the side, and you just beat them with the other characters. Yeah. Been there way too many times. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. This has been our second installment in our adventure into game mechanics. And I hope you guys have been enjoying this little series so far. We got a couple more episodes lined up for you as well, so be on the lookout for those. We are really excited about this new type of like kind of season or episodic way of doing things, where we take a concept and boil it down over a couple episodes just to really dive into it on a much higher level, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you guys once again for listening. Remember, if you like it, share it with a friend, share it with a buddy. Don't forget to rate and review, please, because it definitely helps out a lot. And really just rate and review any podcast that you listen to. Give them that support because it helps them out in order to be found by other people. And that way we can kind of expand the community that much further. But yeah, with that, thank you guys so much for listening. And
Bye.
bye.